Well, welcome back, everyone. Last day of Mike content and starting out the review tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Each day we're going to be going through a unit. Tomorrow we're actually doing 2 units, only free response. I'm going to try and grab as many free response that we haven't done and as many free response that you don't have to draw a graph. Either there's a graph given or a little graph, little, maybe 1 or 2 little points in the graph. But other than that, mostly explanation. So it's something similar to that you'd see. So today, great topic. Love talking about game theory. Oligopolies are great. So let's get moving. Big shout out to Vani over in India. I am proud of this young lad putting all this effort into his AP micro exam. Vani, you're going to get a 5. You're going to do well. I can already tell. So let's get moving today. Once again, welcome back. Coming all the way from Chelsea, Michigan, Matt Pedlow once again. And really quick to start us out before we get to that free response. I know I did this last week, but in case any of you missed it, let's say my name is Thea and I'm a 18-year-old, recently turned 18-year-old student heading off to college here. And I log onto my AP classroom and I click on assignments and this is what I see. So what you guys are going to want to do is click that optional student practice. Why am I going over this again? Well, first of all, it's almost May and you have this test coming up in a few weeks. So you might want to get on studying. Second of all, this opens up all the free response without your teachers having to assign them. So the beauty is, of course, so some of you will be like, well, why would I take it? Well, I don't know what I'm going to get. Oh, just sit tight. Yes, you do. So if you click on the first one, it comes up, the old Martha's marginal benefit, the 5th unit. So once again, you type your answer in right down here. Right? You put a buck and then you hit submit. And then, so your answer goes down there. Then you click submit. When it comes up, you're going to click yes. And then when it comes up again, the big thing is you want to click this yes review. And when you do that, the rubric comes up here at the bottom. Okay. So it says $1 was correct. Part A, you would have gotten 1 point. Man, oh man, the College Board is really giving you guys a chance to look at every free response. Here's what I would do if I were you. Click on here. I'm looking at a free response. So let's say you're watching Thursday, and Thursday I'm going over like monopolies. And you say to yourself, oh, every single time there's a question about lump sum or per unit taxes, I screwed up. Well, just go through these, find a question with that, see how you do, go back through the rubric and see how you did. And if you missed it, figure out why. That's the beauty of all this stuff. So let's get going. Friday, we left off with, what were we talking about there? Monopolistic and price discrimination, right? Maybe you guys saw some examples of price discrimination over the weekend. So let's get going on this. Rice producing a perfectly competitive industry. Grand Farm's typical firm in the rice industry earning positive profits. Side-by-side graphs. So let's do the graphing first and then talk about the explanation points that you guys could get on here. So your graph to start out with is going to look just like this. Okay. And you have the market or the industry and then the firm. So you got price, quantity, PM, QM, supply and demand, obviously. Make your dotted lines over. This becomes PF, remember. It's a horizontal line because they're price takers. Demand equals marginal revenue equals average revenue if you want. You have your marginal cost curve. And then make your dotted lines down, and this will be QF. I believe they told you to label it, and that's correct. Okay, and it also says their marginal revenue, DF and MRF. So you would have to put an F on these. Okay, and then profit. So it does say that they are currently earning profit. Average total cost has to be below. Don't forget, make sure that goes through the bottom. That's cutting it kind of close there. And stay on this line. There's your profit box. So even if you say to yourself, I don't have to draw these. Well, you don't, but you kind of have to know what they look like when they're drawn. So if they draw them for you and they ask about this, right, is this firm earning profit and blah, 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 you would have to be able to talk about the profit area. It says B in the long run, what happens to each of the following number of firms in the industry? Okay, they're making profit. So what's going to happen? We know the number of firms will increase. Why? Due to the existence of profits. Firms are going to want to come in. And what's going to happen to the equilibrium price, right? Over here, well, firms enter, it would look like an increase in supply, which would drive down your price. So the price would fall because firms would come in. So far, so good, right? Kind of an easy few points up there. C, suppose Lori's Quick Eats sells fried rice in a monopolistically competitive fast food industry. Lori's Quick Eats is earning positive economic profits in the short run using a correctly labeled graph. So demand and margin revenue. So now your brain has to transition out of perfect competition into imperfect competition. So if you saw a graph that looked like this, it's set to label these DL, MRL, marginal cost. Make your dotted lines down. Here's the quantity. Says label it QL, price, PL up here. And because she is earning positive economic profit, your average total cost, that's going through the bottom once again. And if you remember why, because if your marginal cost is below it, it's going to be pulling your average down. If your marginal cost goes above it, it pulls your average up. If you remember and you go back to that picture of Larry Bird in the short shorts, by the way, speaking of basketball, if you have not been watching that Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN, oh, come on, you're tuning the wrong stuff. That is outstanding. Okay, anyways, here's our profit. You'd go right to here, and it would look just like this, okay? So then it says, D, draw a correctly labeled graph of Lori's Quick Eats in the long run, showing the demand curve and long run average total cost curve, and it would look just like this. So this is an easy one because they told you just have to label, right? A demand curve, and then a long run average total cost curve, and it would look just like that. Did you have to label everything else? No. Remember, in the long run, they go until price equals average total cost, because if there's any profits, because there's such low barriers to entry, firms can just keep entering. So, right, if you own a restaurant in town and you're making economic profit, you can't bar anyone else from entering the restaurant. You can't deny them access to that. So because of that, that's why profit disappears. All right, moving on. Today, the good stuff, oligopoly game theory. Here we go. So here is a sheet that I've given my students for, oh gosh, almost 20 years. I can't recommend this enough. This is something that I would highly recommend pausing or going back. If you're watching live right now and you just want to watch this throughout, go back to this, make this little chart. And if I could get into my school, which I can't, then I could have had these copies and then just thrown a link up there. But, you know, that's kind of difficult because, well, it's locked. So market structure, really quick, I'm just going to go sail through these. This, if you understand this, in each one of these, you could explain why each one of these boxes says what it does, then this is a big part of the AP test. It's all the idea of comprehending and explaining. So perfect competition, you have lots of sellers, right? Many, they're selling the identical products. They have no control over price. So I always tell my kids there are certain boxes that when they do this and I fill this information, I say, pull a star next to this. That's the important one, right? The fact that price takers, there are no barriers to entry in the examples. We'll just keep using the same one, a wheat farm. A monopoly, number of sellers, one. That's kind of important. They're selling a unique product. They are price makers. They have complete control, but remember, you can't go past demand, so you can only go as high as the demand curve. Their barriers to entry are very high, and examples are things like mass transit, your utility companies, your natural monopolies like that. Some might even say a certain few tech companies, but we're on one of their platforms, so we're not going to say that. Monopolistic, many, but not as many as perfectly competitive firms, right? There's a lot of restaurants out there. Keyword, this one right here, differentiated. If they said something like there's a bunch of firms and they're all differentiated, what type of market structure? You would have to know that, and that's fair game. And so you'd say it's a monopolistic firm. They have some control over price, but of course competition, right? Very low barriers to entry and things like retail, right? Restaurants, clothing, things like that. And then oligopolies, what we're going to talk about today. Keyword, number of sellers, few. That is important. If you are in a market with just a few major sellers and they're making up X percentage of total sales and output, then you're in an oligopoly market. So type of product, very similar. We're going to talk about some of these. Control over price, this is the other keyword here. So not only few, but they get two keywords, interdependent. So we're not only dependent on yourself, you depend on others to make your pricing decisions. Barriers to entry are very high, some would say. A lot of that is the fact that like some of these big firms can afford to advertise, like Ford and GM. But if I made a car in my backyard, I could not afford what was it, a $5.5, $6 million Super Bowl ad. So I'm priced out of that marketplace. And that is a barrier to entry. And then things like soda, So you think about Coke and Pepsi. I remember giving this statistic a few years ago. This might have changed just a couple of years ago, but just Coke and Pepsi brands, right? So the Mountain Dew and Sprite and all those made up over 91% of all soda sold. That number's probably fallen. There are a number of smaller firms that have entered the market. And then Cadbury Schweppes is number 3. So, you got Dr. Pepper and 7-Up floating out there, right? Majority of soda is being sold by 2 firms. And then airlines, you can list them off. You have American, you have Delta, you have Southwest, and United. And then you have some smaller players, right? The JetBlues and some of the regional things like that. These are oligopoly markets. It's not like you go to the airport and there's 100 different airlines to choose from. That's not how it works. If you can go back and look at this and write this down, and it's something you could just look at maybe the day before the test, boy, this is good information to know. Okay, so today, what is an oligopoly? Once again, few firms acting interdependently with high barriers to entry. That is a definition of what we call an oligopoly or an oligopolistic market. And interdependent, remember, means that you are dependent on others to make decisions about your quantities, your pricing decisions, things of that nature. So that's what when we talk about oligopolies, let's say Coke want to raise a price. Okay? I remember when I was a kid, a 2-liter thing of soda or pop, if you're in Western New York and certain areas of Michigan, or Coke if you're down south. So a 2-liter thing of Coke or Pepsi, I remember it was a big deal. It would go on sale for 99 cents. Today, it's probably not that different, right? The prices remain relatively low. There's a million reasons why, but let's say that Coke says, all right, a 20-ounce Coke that you get out of a vending machine, which is way more soda than anyone should drink in a year. But so let's say they charge $1 for that. And Coke gets together and says, let's charge $1.49. Okay? Keep it below $1.50, but we're going to raise it 50% in price. Well, they can't, because what if Pepsi didn't? Or maybe Pepsi says, all right, we'll raise ours to $1.19. We're still 30 cents cheaper and blah, blah. So when you're interdependent, you're always looking at the other firms to see what they're going to do. And the example, let's talk about the auto industry, right? What they call up here in Michigan, right? The big 3, Ford, GM, and Chrysler. And today Tesla is trying to muscle in on that market. But now you also have Hyundai and Kia and Honda and BMW, right? And all these global firms out there. So when you think about the cereal industry alone, there are really 4 main makers of cereal. Okay, they're basically, there's 3 big ones and then kind of a 4th, and they're the big boys on the block. Think to yourself who they are. So my guess is most of you came up with Kellogg's right away. Battle Creek, you can read all about John Harvey Kellogg and his brother Will. Woo, crazy dudes, and why breakfast cereal was invented, but we can't talk about that now. So Kellogg's a big one. And then General Mills, which I think is out of Minneapolis firm, I think up there. And General Mills makes up a huge portion, primarily due to Cheerios. Okay, what's another one you're thinking? Probably Post cereal. When I saw this, I thought this was like a scam. I kind of really hope this is an April Fool's Day, but are they honestly making cereal out of Twinkies? Sweet God. That's got to be a joke. And then if you are if your parents are the one who invented that, bravo to them. They're probably making a lot of money on, my gosh, Twinkie cereal. And last but not least, Quaker, right? Quaker Oats. And so what used to be just kind of an oatmeal company, right? The Quaker brand has expanded, and now they're a cereal company as well. Okay, if I said to you, tell me another, most students immediately just shut down. They cannot think of another major cereal brand. You could come up with some niche players, like you might say, oh, there's I'm making this up, but Paul's Organic Granola. But when you look at total cereal sales, it's going to probably be one of these companies. That is an oligopoly market. They are dominating. There's a few firms, high barriers to entry. Do you think I could come up with a cereal out of my garden that I come up with, and it probably wouldn't be Twinkies? Well, maybe a Hostess, Ho-Ho cupcake cereal. Do you think I can compete with Post? No, I don't have the advertising revenue, the distribution, the factories, things like that. So oligopolies, the big thing we start talking about oligopolies is they have a lot of incentive to engage in what we call collusion. And this is a term, do I think it'll be asked? Probably not. But could it be? Certainly. There could be an entire question about issues arising with different market structures. like the issues of monopoly, the fact they're not allocatively efficient because price is greater than marginal cost, and the issue with monopolistic, same kind of thing, or they can price discriminate. And the issue with oligopolies, maybe there's collusion. And this is when companies that traditionally would compete with each other, they might work together to gain some advantage. Adam Smith back in 1776 warned about the 1759, the theory of moral sentiments, warned about business people getting together, even businessmen back then. And he said, basically, the first thing you do is talk about how to like get one over on the consumer. You really shouldn't allow business people to be sitting around too often discussing business. And collusion is technically illegal under most circumstances. If there are two hotels in a town and I go get a cup of coffee and the other hotel owner's in line, totally legal. If we start chatting about the hotel business, totally legal. But the second I say like, hey, why don't I raise my rates 20%? And then next week you follow and raise your rates 20%, we'll both make 20% more. Since there's only two hotels, right? Being in Michigan like this, you guys should see it's insanity when Michigan football plays a home game because you have 110,000 people. So you got people from all over the country coming in, all over the state. Even a lot of Ohio folks know to root for a good team. So a lot of them will come up, and people need hotel rooms. So hotels sell out. And yes, of course they raise their rates. Is that legal? Of course it's legal. You can. But what you can't do is call the other hotel owners and collude on prices and say, this day, let's go here, this day, right? Sometimes companies get in trouble for this. Someone records them on phone, on the telephone, kind of coming up with these ideas and then turns them in, and it's not good. And then if they really get excited about this, they can form cartels, which when the firms kind of get together. So collusion is this discussion of like price fixing and all that. A cartel, I know exactly what you're thinking of right now. And that's the drug cartels, right? Out of Mexico and in some of the Central American countries there. And, you know, the Colombian cartels, and some of you have probably watched Narcos on Netflix or at least heard about it. And think about what they were trying to do, right? Cartels, the issue with oligopolies, what are they trying to do? They're trying to lessen competition and get more like a monopoly. But if I just got done telling you it's a few firms, a monopoly is one firm. So what are they trying to do? Form an agreement. So in essence, it's one firm now making all the pricing decisions. That literally is what drug cartels tried to do. Form organizations. OPEC tried to do the same thing with oil. And it's broken up a bit because a number of larger countries that produce oil won't be part of OPEC. So they've lost a lot of their clout. But if you look right, we're actually trying to come to an agreement with OPEC right now. The world is flipped on its head. And so they're typically illegal but a lot of times they don't work. And here's why they don't work. So I'm standing in line, I'm drinking that coffee, and the other hotel owner says, raise your rates by 20%, and I'll do the same. Hey, no problem. So the hotel owner goes back and they raise their rates by 20%. And what do? I raise mine by like 5%. So I make 5% more profit, but I'm still cheaper. And now my hotel fills up and the other hotel owners doesn't fill up. And so now I've cheated on the agreement. There's incentive to cheat. Now that works as long as someone's not threatening my life. So often when you talk about, like you think about Escobar and some of the things that they did down in the Medellin cartel, right? We're talking about, no, Kellogg's and General Mills are not like drug cartels. No, they're not, threatening violence. The idea is a lot of times oligopolies, there's incentive to really try and collude on these prices. Some of it is done illegally. Some of it's done just kind of with a nod and a wink. Like Pepsi might notice Coke raising prices and might notice they haven't lowered them a week or two. And then Pepsi might say, well, we can raise our prices and things like that. But when you look at like drug cartels, what they did was try to become more and more like a monopoly, right? Higher price, lower quantity, keep prices high. Okay, so game theory comes out of oligopolies. This is one thing that students love doing. And so I actually play a game in my class called Split or Steal. And if you guys get a chance, I think it'll be in the comments section. There'll be a link to the video that I want you guys to watch. You'll like it. So there's two videos. And game theory is taking into account what you think the other person's strategy is going to be to come up with your own strategy. Decision making. So once again, I'm interdependent. I can't just come up with strategy. I have to think about what the other person is also thinking. And so firms must be strategic. Coke can't simply raise prices. They must think, when is Pepsi about to? When would it be best for us to do this? Those kind of things. If you go on YouTube, if the link's not up, type in Golden Balls. This is a British game show. And what two people do is they get to I don't know the exact whole, I've never watched the full episode, but there's a few of these in the end. And there's one with a man and a woman. And you have, ready? So focus. You got two golden balls in your hand. Only you can see what's inside them. One says split, one says steal. The other person has the same thing. And you get to a certain level of money. And if you both put in split, then you split the money. So let's say there was like 200,000 pounds, right? At the time, like $300,000, whatever. And you have 2 minutes to hash it out. And you're looking at the person. So this man is looking at this woman saying like, look, you know, there's no way I could steal from you, because if you put in steal and the other person puts in steal, no one gets anything. So now there's incentive. If you're going to put in steal and they put in steal, you walk away with nothing. But if you put in steal and they put in split, you steal all of the money. You don't have to split it. You take it all. Okay. So he says, I'm going to put in the split ball. I could never walk out here. And she says, oh, I hope when you cried earlier, those were real tears, ball. And they go back and forth. And I'm not going to ruin the ending for you, but I want you to witness what happens when they open and turn their golden balls. And the other one that's on here, and this is the link one, was two gentlemen. And you talk about game theory. National Public Radio actually went back and did a follow-up story about Ibrahim and Nick and what they did. And Nick came out with this wonderful plan. He said, here's the deal. I'm going to steal. I'm putting in the steal ball if you don't like it. But I promise you, I'm going to give you my word. I am going to split the money. And Ibrahim's like, what are you talking about? When you get a chance, watch that, because it's game theory. NPR did this whole thing about this. You can listen to the NPR piece as well. So it should be in the comment sections when you're done. Okay. So let's look at, let's say this is you and your buddy in the back of the class, which I doubt it is, because if you acted like Beavis in bed, you probably aren't watching YouTube videos to get ready for the AP test. Let's be honest. Classic 90s TV. Oh, hilarious. So let's say this is something called the prisoner's dilemma. So I'm going to show you how to do these. There could easily be a game theory question on this because you don't have to do any graphing. So follow along, pay attention. All right. So let's say that Beavis and Butthead are innocent. Okay? They really haven't done anything wrong. So they're going to give them a choice to confess or not confess. And this is called the prisoner's dilemma for a reason. It's actually technically illegal to do this. But what they would do is put Beavis in one room and Butthead in the other room. Okay, wouldn't let them talk. Yes, and those were their names from the TV. I didn't just make those up. Okay, classic MTV. So they say to Beavis, here's the deal. If you both confess, you both get 5 years. Okay, we know you did it. We know you're guilty. If neither of you confess, you're only going to get 2 years. And by this point, like, you know, you're going to walk out of here free men almost, right? Year or two in jail. But if you don't confess and Butthead next door does confess, okay, because you lied to us, we're going to put you in jail for 25 years and he's going to go free for telling us the truth. So now all of a sudden you realize if you can't talk to the person on the other side of the room, you have big problems because you don't trust that they will. So let's say you had this agreement going in, right? Remember, I told you there's incentive to always cheat on these agreements. And I said, let's both not confess and get 2 years. Well, if the other person was smart, what would they do? Confess, make me not confess, and they walk out, right? So now what happens is they're both going to confess. That's why it's called the prisoner's dilemma. People are confessing for things that potentially they didn't do. So here's how we're going to do these. So let's ignore the bottom row down here. Okay. So the first thing you have to understand is the first number in each box, right? This box would be if they both confess. The first number in each box, that would be to the left. That's person over here, Beavis today. And the second number in each box go to the person up here. So let's not worry about the bottom. Let's just worry about the top and say, if Beavis confesses, right? And for those of you wondering, what was I going to use? Hall and Oates? Come on. So let's say Beavis confesses, okay? Now you're looking at the second two numbers over here. If Butthead confesses, he gets 5 years. If he doesn't confess, he gets 25 years. So clearly, what's he going to do? He's going to confess. So you circle the 5. So if you need to pause or rewatch this and write these down and do your own circles to see if they match up, that's fine. Okay? So if Beavis confesses, we know Butthead's going to confess. Now, let's not worry about the top numbers up here. Let's go straight down here. If Beavis does not confess, Right? I can't believe I'm literally spending 3 minutes talking about Beavis and Butthead. This is maybe the greatest day of my teaching career. So if Beavis does not confess, if Butthead confesses, he goes free. Doesn't confess, he gets 2 years. Well, free is better than 2 years, so he's going to confess. So now what you're seeing is no matter what Beavis does, it's in Butthead's best interest to always confess. Okay, so now let's see what Butthead does, or let's see what Beavis does based on what Butthead's going to do. So Beavis, okay, is going to confess because 5 years is better than 25 years. So Butthead confesses, 5 years is better than 25 years. If Butthead does not confess, if Beavis confesses, he goes free. If he doesn't confess, he gets 2 years. So free's better. So now they're both going to confess, and that's why they call this the prisoner's dilemma. Now, sadly, there have been no AP free response ever written with Beavis and Butthead. I'm sure today someone will be offended or something. So we're going to talk about some similar game theory. What we call, these are called payoff matrices with some different names. So you'll notice in there that both of them always were going to confess. So they had what's known as a dominant strategy. And this is when dominant strategy simply is when the action is, whatever action they're going to take is always higher, independent of whatever the other person is going to do. So no matter what the other player B does, player A is always going to do the same thing. So that's called a dominant strategy. In that case, it was confess for both of them. No matter what the other one did, they were going to confess. And that, so, right, kind of an easier way, kids always, right, no matter what player B does, player A is not going to deviate. They're always going to confess in that case. And a lot of times it can lead to what's known as a Nash Equilibrium, which was in basically, so it's named after John Nash, right? If you've ever seen A Beautiful Mind, right? He didn't invent this. John von Neumann, a German mathematician, kind of came up with all this game theory stuff. What Nash did was tweak this a little bit and realize that there's certain times where no player can increase his or her payoff by taking any other action given what the other player is doing. So once we get there, that Nash equilibrium means they're always going to stay there. And we can figure out what they're going to do based on what that Nash equilibrium is. Okay, so let me show you how to do one of these. Okay, you got Pam and Tara, okay, two good friends from back in the day. And so Pam, they're selling lemonade. So once again, this is a payoff matrix. So watch how to do this. So if Pam is going to go high, remember, Tara is the last two numbers. So if you could, like right now, maybe on your computer, you cover up the bottom two squares with your hand, something like that. So now you're only looking at the 40, 40 and then 20, 70. Okay. So Pam goes high. If Tara goes with a high price, she gets 40. If she goes low, she gets $70. No brainer. She's going to set the low price and get more money. Okay. Now do this, cover up the top couple and just look at the bottom ones. And if Pam goes low, if Tara goes high, she gets 20. If she goes low, she gets 30. She's going to go low. Stop there. Then say to yourself, Tara has a dominant strategy. No matter what Pam does, Tara is always going to go low. Okay, so let's say Tara goes high. So if Pam goes high, she gets 40. If she goes low, she gets 70. So Pam's definitely setting a low price. And if Tara goes low, if Pam goes high, she gets 20. If she goes low, she gets 30. So guess what? Pam has a dominant strategy. She's always going to go low. And since Tara's always going to go, there's a Nash equilibrium. They're both always going to end up going low and earning $30. This is why game theory is so fun. Look at the payoff matrix. Just like back at Prisoner's Dilemma, what should those two have done? Both not confessed. Both Tara and Pam should have set the high price. Why don't they? Because Pam is scared that if she sets a high price and she and Tara agreed, right? Pam says, oh, it's great. Tara promised me we both go with a high price. We're in $40 in sales. This is wonderful. That if she sets a high price, that Tara's smart, she's going to go low. Pam's only going to get $20 at the end of the day. And Tara's, she's got $70. That's why there's incentive to cheat, which is why going back to the talk about cartels, if there's a threat of violence, maybe that doesn't happen. But in business, hopefully there isn't. So when you look at these, if Pam sets a high price, Tara will do best by charging a low price. if you do your circles on these, like if you guys get one of these and you just jot it down real quick, then you're done. You know it's A. We just went through that, okay? And let's do one more, Evergreen and Nature View, because I want to spend some time doing a couple free response with you today. So they're bidding for landscaping. So once again, if Evergreen goes high, if Nature View goes high, they get 300. If they go low, they get 400. You go low. And Evergreen goes low, excuse me. If Nature View goes high, they get 100. If they go low, they get 200. So once again, Nature View has a dominant strategy to go low. But don't think it's always going to be this way. So if Nature View goes high, if Evergreen bids high, they get 6. If they bid low, they get 720. But now look what happens. If Nature View goes low, if Evergreen bids high, they get 520. If they bid low, they get 500. And so now Evergreen does not have a dominant strategy. Crazy. But you do know there's a Nash equilibrium because Nature View is always, no matter what, going to go low. And since they're always going to go low, that means Evergreen will end up bidding high. So that's C. Evergreen bids high because Nature View goes low. This is our Nash equilibrium right there. Okay, so you just have to figure out if one of them has a dominant strategy, then that's what they're always going to do. So now what is the other firm going to do? Evergreen does not have a dominant strategy. They might go high, they might go low. It depends on what Nature View is going to do. So you might want to write this down, sheet of paper, just write in the numbers really quick. Okay, and I'll show you how to do this one. The next one, we're going to do the next one as well because I don't want any. When we do review tomorrow, I just want you focused on units 1 and 2, not to worry about the game theory. So we're going to finish this up today. So let's go through. And so how do you do these? Once again, why try and answer the questions, right? It's just like with marginal columns. You have all these total columns, and I said, get your marginal columns done because you know they're going to ask questions about it. So on something like game theory, go ahead and just do all your circles first to figure out who's going to do what, then go back and answer the questions. So if Ataburger goes high, if beefsteak, it's a terrible name, goes high, they get 13. If they go low, they get 14. They're going to go low. And if Ataburger goes low, if beefsteak goes high, they get 8. If they go, they get 7. So you know they're going to go high. So in this case, beefsteak does not have a dominant strategy. And if I had to guess, they're going to ask me a question about that. Then if beefsteak goes high, if Ataburger goes high, they get 10. If they go low, they get 12. They're going to go low. And if beefsteak goes low, if Ataburger goes high, they're going to have 6. If they go low, they're going to end up with 9. So we know Ataburger now has a low dominant strategy to always go low, which means beefsteak will end up going high because if they go low, $8 is better than 7. So A, if, and this is just how you do this, if Ataburger sets a high price, right, what strategy will beefsteak select? So you put low because 14 is better than 13. So if they go high, 14 is better than 13. And you already have this drawn, right? So it's easy. B, does beefsteak have a dominant strategy? No. And if they said on the AP test on May 20th, why is this? Then you can just say, because if Ataburger goes high, beefsteak goes low. And if Ataburger goes low, beefsteak goes high, right? That kind of thing, using the information they provided for you guys. C, if they collude, so remember, collusion, they get together, they agree, no matter what, let's both do this. And both agreeing to choose high prices to maximize their joint profits at $23. So, right, 10 plus 13, they're both gonna go high in this box. So 10 plus 13, they're gonna end up sharing basically $23. If it is not legally enforced, okay, does Ataburger have an incentive to break the agreement? Well, look, if beefsteak says, hey, why don't we do this? Let's both go high, right? You get 10, I get 13. And if you look, that's the highest profit for both of us. So beefsteak says, this is great, right? We're both going to go high. Ataburger then says, well, if I go high, right, which I've agreed to do, I can get $10, but if I go low, I can get 12. So once again, there is incentive to cheat on the agreement because Ataburger is now going to go low and get $12, which is, so that's what you'd say. Yes, Ataburger has incentive to cheat because 12 is greater than $10. And then D, instead of colluding, they simultaneously select their prices in the Nash equilibrium. Well, we just got done saying that Ataburger is always going to go low. That's their dominant strategy. So now beefsteak has to go high. So Ataburger is going to end up with $12 and beefsteak is going to end up with 8. Right there's your Nash equilibrium. Okay. And if you're wondering why, by the way, in econ, why these mathematicians are doing this, there's a lot of Cold War stuff behind this, right? And you can, if you go to college, you'll expand on these greatly, but not in an intro class. But they would do it like, all right, Soviet Union, United States, they can either reduce the amount of nuclear weapons or increase. And if they reduce, they look weak. And if they increase, they look strong, and it makes them safer. And that's why they kept, right? It was all game theory stuff, and they could play these out. It's kind of neat. So let's do this last one together as well. Get you guys out of here. Hopefully you're having lovely weather. You can go outside and help your folks garden and things like that, mow the lawn. All right. You got Jackpot Florist and Boulevard Gardens, and they share the market for floral bouquets in Tulip Town. So they're making bouquets. They're making, let's see here. Jackpot's decided whether to close 6 or 9, and Boulevard is going to either deliver the bouquets or no delivery. Okay, so once again, let's not worry about all the questions. Let's just do, right? We'll go through and do what you know how to do. So if Jackpot says we're going to close at 6, if Boulevard delivers, they get $30. If they don't, they get 20. So they're going to deliver. And if Jackpot says, hey, we're going to stay open till 9, if Boulevard delivers, they get 50. If they don't deliver, they get 40. So Boulevard, no matter what, has a dominant strategy. They're always going to deliver. Right? No matter when Jackpot closes, they're going to deliver their flowers. So let's say Boulevard delivers. Then if Jackpot closes at 6, they get $35. They close at 9, they get 25. So Jackpot's going to stay open or close. Excuse me. They won't stay open until 9. They're going to close at 6. And then if Boulevard does not offer delivery, 55 is better than 45. So now Jackpot is going to close at 6, meaning they both have dominant strategies. Here's your Nash equilibrium. Life is good. So A, is Jackpot's dominant strategy close at 6 or 9? And the answer, 6. Right? We just said that. B, suppose Jackpot chooses to close at 6 and Boulevard, okay, so they choose to close at 6 and Boulevard chooses the no delivery option. Is this profit maximizing? And the answer, of course, is no, because they could have, if they delivered, they made 30. By not delivering, they only made 20. That's not good business. C, how much profit will Boulevard earn in the Nash equilibrium? Well, since Jackpot's always going to go 6, Boulevard is going to deliver. So you're going to end up here. And so Boulevard is going to end up with $30. And then D, suppose they merge to form one company with 2 locations and still face the same actions. Which strategy would they choose? Okay, so now what you need to think about is if this was one company, they're not competing with each other. If these numbers stayed the same, you have to figure out where is the highest profit. So all you have to do is you add up the numbers in each box. So $65, 75, 75, 95, 85, excuse me. Seriously, 85. And so what are they going to do? Jackpot is going to stay open until 9. Boulevard is not going to deliver, right? So that would be your answer. They're going to close at 9 and no delivery because $85 is the highest profit that they can make in this whole thing. E, instead of merging, Jackpot proposes a plan to cooperate. Jackpot is going to agree to close at 9. Boulevard agrees, no delivery. If a firm breaks the agreement, I would love to see this in writing, it must subtract $12 from its profit, add it to the other firm's profit. Okay, can't ask you to do this on the free response this year. Well, no, I take that back. They can't ask you to redraw this whole thing and upload it. What they can ask you to do is to do this and then tell them how much profit based on what you just did. Fair game. So it says, assume the agreement was in effect, redraw the payoff matrix and including the player's actions. So I have that. I'm going to show it to you in a minute. And then E2, assuming Boulevard is a profit maximizing firm and there are no antitrust concerns, would they agree to the proposal? Okay. So once again, it says they're going to do this right here. They disagreed on it. Jackpot's going to stay close at 9 and Boulevard's going to, so right here. And if they don't do that, they have to subtract $12 from theirs. So it's going to look just like this. Okay. So what you can see is, right, here was $20 here. So you have to say to yourself, if someone breaks that, so that's where you have to figure out where that $12 is going to go. So if you need to write this down real quick or take a picture of it with your phone type thing, because they're agreeing to stay open until 9 and they're agreeing no delivery, 6 p.m. of delivery, the numbers are not going to change because they're not breaking any agreement. That wasn't part of the agreement. Then look back at this. It was 25 and 50 originally. But if they did what they said they were going to do, jackpot stays open till 9. Remember, it was 25 and 50 before. That means Boulevard, who had agreed not to deliver, is now delivering. So you have to subtract 12 from 50. Now it's 38. Add that 12 to the 25. So that's why these numbers have changed. And then same over here. If Boulevard says, yeah, no delivery. So look at the numbers were. They were 55 and 20. Now they broke that. Jackpot said they were going to stay open until 9. If they close at 6, they have to take $12 from 55 and add it to the 20. So it's 43 and 32. And then, of course, these are definitely going to change stay the same, because that means that is the agreement over here, right? Which means it's going to stay the same. So because this was the original agreement, no one's breaking it. That means they're doing what they should. And then it begs the last question on here, which what did it say? Would Boulevard agree to this? Okay, look. No delivery, okay? And now, if they did this, they would agree to it because they're going to make, in fact, more money by doing this, okay? So if you look back at this, right? Originally, what did we say? Originally, they were going to make $30, Boulevard was. You answer that back earlier in the question because the dominant strategy was close at 6 and Boulevard would deliver. If you could get them to agree to not deliver and jackpot stay up until 9, now they get $40. This is our new payoff, right? Our new Nash Equilibrium, they're going to be right under. They just agreed to it. And 40 is better than $30 for Boulevard. So yes, they would agree to it. All right, what do you think? Game theory? Love it. Could it be asked? 110% it could be asked. Will it? I have no idea. When we get to the review the rest of this week, I'm going to go back and pull at least one more free response that we haven't done. And there's a bunch of them out there, and go through and make sure you guys know exactly how to do this. You circle and then you kind of go through. It makes it easy for you guys to understand what they're going to do. But yeah, look at that. Pretty easy stuff. Tomorrow, what you've been waiting for. Each day, 5 to 6 free response questions. We'll go over them. So hopefully, once you guys see this, right, you know how to do these circles, you know how to do the game theory. Hopefully it makes some sense to you guys. Okay, so once again, thank you as always for watching. Keep those comments coming in, those emails, love them. And you guys have a fine afternoon. Tomorrow I will see you for review. Take care of yourselves and enjoy your Monday. We'll see you.